Let's go.
Welcome to the Soul Fam podcast, where we expand your personal universe. I'm Diana Marquetta, and in each episode, Soul Fam co-founder, co-creator Lexi Strummer-Solden and I interview the world's most rising and longtime experts in consciousness, spirituality, entertainment, healing, and science. From Earth's dimensions and dimensions way, way beyond. On the Soul Fam podcast, our frequencies are high and your heart chakras will open as these powerful voices of today share cutting-edge research, profound experiences, and valuable knowledge for your world in this out-of-this-world, thought-provoking, envelope-pushing interviews that could only take place right here on the Soul Fam podcast. Welcome to the Soul Fam podcast. On today's episode, I'm Diana Marquetta, and I have the great pleasure of interviewing Adam from the Medium channel on YouTube. I've been watching Adam for a while, and his combination of predictions, a little bit of astrology, tarot, numerology, and his sincere guidance to help us not only prepare, but traverse these tumultuous times on an energetic consciousness and really on a 3D level as well, has really sort of grabbed the internet by storm. So I'm so excited to talk with Adam about what's going on currently. And I want you to know we're overcoming all sorts of odds today to help bring you this interview. Winds and electrical sort of problems. So there must be a really strong message coming through today.
Yeah, well, we'll see what the messages that come through. But yeah, I'm here in the Catskill Mountains of New York, so we had lots of wind, lots of rain, power outages this morning. I had to rush down to my office, and it's been quite a morning, but it's such a powerful time now. There's so much shifts that's happening energetically, and well, I shouldn't say obviously to you and I. It's obvious, but maybe
Right.
not to everybody. But the physical, what's solid and physical, that's energy. Also, it's just on a different frequency, on a lower frequency energetically. So basically what happens energetically over time is going to happen physically also. So as these energies and frequencies keep building on the planet, that's what's on some level anyway, but it's kind of causing all the old to fall. I mean, it's basically an awakening, a new earth, to borrow Eckhart Tolle's title, A New Earth, but it is like a new energy, a new reality that we're coming into, and the old has to fall, and it's pretty tumultuous for a lot of people. Like we see what's going on in the world with the politics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that absolute craziness is normalized in today's society, basically. Right? I mean,
Right. There's a lot of craziness going on. So I think.
Yeah,
Do you sense that, Adam, that this with the sort of craziness that's going on, that it, as you just said, it's become acceptable? So is that because we just can't deal with it? We're sort of pinging around trying to, stay grounded and take care of ourselves at the same time?
Well, I mean, there's that, but I think that it's also a very calculated series of programming and manipulation of the masses that's going on also. And it just kind of gives me the sense to say that it's been going on a while. I could go more into like conspiracy theories, conspiracy facts, and all that kind of stuff. But just to answer the question, I do believe that this is all very orchestrated to further divide and conquer people. That there is a ruling class, whether you call them the cabal, the deep state, the globalists, whatever. It's been that way for a very long time. It's nothing new, but it's just sort of carrying out an agenda, carrying out a plan to further centralize things, control things. And I have to tell you that people awakening and spirituality is the one thing that they don't want, because then the whole plan is going to fall. It's happening already. So there's a lot of pressure against spiritual awakening. There's a lot of psyops that are going on, like psychological operations that are happening. A lot of frequency stuff that's going on through our self powers. I always have a little bit of shungai whenever I'm near because that helps to scatter some of that, and it's just like a process. Like think 20 years ago, and I'm not going all political on you. I'm not like gonna bash Trump or support him or any of that kind of stuff. But just think 20 years ago, like if an eighth of this stuff was happening, and a president or presidential candidate was saying some of the stuff that he's saying now, it's like nobody would really vote for him. Like that would be totally crazy, basically. So we had the 4 years between 2016 2020. Lot of stuff on social media, right? On then Twitter, now X. And it's like conduct you wouldn't expect from a president. I could just hear my parents on the other side just kind of rolling in their graves because they were staunch Democrats. I was raised as a Democrat. I left the Democratic Party sometime during the Obama administration. That's a whole other story. So I tell people, no, I'm nonpartisan. I'm not right wing. I'm left wing. I'm in the heart.
Right.
Like the Native American meme that was going around for a while. What if I told you the right wing and the left wing belong to the same bird? So I kind of had the same dirty, corrupt bird. So to me, they're just two parts that are answering the same authority, basically. So we try to keep that perspective and understand what's going on. But, it's just programming. It's like manipulating how people think. That happens through media and through social media. Yeah, they say we have free speech. Yeah, but we also have an algorithm on social media. That's where most people's voices are the strongest on social media. But the algorithm controls what is going to be seen by your peers and what isn't. So if what you're saying is supporting the divide or supporting their agenda, you're going to get all kinds of hits. If it's not, then you're going to be silenced, basically. So, it is what it is. But those of us that are on the process of awakening, that are working to help humanity to grow and help people to understand, we're not freaking out about it. I mean, I'm very empathic. I'm very upset to see all the suffering in the world, obviously, but I understand that these unfair facades in our world, like we live in a society that's built on a very weak foundation of greed, power over others, all that kind of stuff. And we're getting these higher cosmic frequencies that keep hitting the planet. The way that the structures are set up now, the higher frequencies don't support that anymore. So that's why everything's coming down. To me, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and all of them, they're just players. They're almost like actors to me. To me, it's almost like a show. I mean, not to trivialize it or generalize it, because there's some serious stuff that's happening, but it feels like all partially orchestrated. And as these frequencies keep getting higher, the foundations have to crumble and the structure has to fall. It's like built on a house of cards, basically, on a weak foundation of greed, corruption, power over others. And all it takes is the big bad wolf or the big bad coyote. I don't know if you guys understand the legend of the coyote, but that's Donald Trump, basically, the trickster that tricks people into growing, learning, and awakening. So all it takes is the big bad wolf to blow it all down, basically.
Right.
What was it, 4 or 5 years ago? All it took was a tiny little bug to tear this whole society down, basically. So
Exactly.
that's the reality. So if we're in our heart and we're in our power, we can be okay during these changes and help empower others, basically. So anyways.
I love that. I so appreciate that and honor that. And you're so willing to talk about it. And I feel like, if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that there's such immense power in spirituality.
Oh, yeah. Basically, and it's an awakening. It's all frequency, it's all energy. Everything's energy, right? So and it's just it's the time. If you look you can go to the Bible, to Revelations, and other prophecies. You can go to the Old Testament; it was filled with prophecies. I love the Bible, even though I understand that there's another side to it. I'll put it that way. But then you can look at the Hopi prophecies, the Maya prophecy,
Yeah.
Nostradamus, Edgar Casey. and more recently, Baba Vaga, I think that was her name, the
Right.
blind prophet from Hungary, I believe.
Uh-huh.
She had some very chilling predictions for 2025, let me tell you. Also,
So, Adam, let's back up a little bit. How did you get involved in spirituality? I feel like you have an interesting background. I don't know about all of it specifically,
sure.
but I'm super curious what brought you to be a voice in this awakening right now.
Yeah, I know, it's a calling. So
Yeah.
basically, as a young child, I know that I could sense and see spirits. So a lot, especially today, a lot of young children can. I kind of remember being like 4 or 5, and hearing my mom's voice. Oh, you're talking to the people that aren't there again. That kind of a thing.
Huh.
So anyway, always had that interest, but I had a spontaneous awakening in 1970. I was just riding my bicycle basically, and then all of a sudden it's like a bright flash in my mind, and then a second flash, and then I just stopped. I looked around,
Mm.
everything looked the same, but it was different, and I just I started crying, and my first thought was everything I've learned up until now is a complete lie. Now I must learn the truth. So that
Huh.
was the thought that came in. Meanwhile, I was in college then, and I was studying. I was going to be a meteorologist. I had my whole life mapped
Oh.
out, and then one flash, it's like, no, that's not what your life's gonna be. So I
Huh.
started to get into martial arts and yoga. I started to study and to learn. But so that's how basically how it began. And after this spontaneous awakening, I was just getting these weird psychic experiences. Like I'd wake up in the morning, I'd see somebody in my mind that I hadn't seen for months. I'd see them that day. I'd be talking to somebody, and I thought I was responding to something they're saying. They look at me and said, I didn't say that. I just thought that. So I was getting a lot of telepathy.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting these things where I could breathe and focus, and the winds would blow, clouds would build up. My brother, who unfortunately just crossed over, would acknowledge that and just be really fascinated. Like, how do you do that? How do you make the clouds come? Well, those abilities started to fade over time. Not everything. That was just over the first few months after that. But it really got me, understanding. It's like, and I call it an awakening. Now that I've had more sophisticated awakening as I've gotten older, it's more like a shaking than an awakening. It's kind of like spirit, kind of like a boom. It's like you time to get it right, basically. So then I met a psychic when I was in Oklahoma City, specifically in Norman, Oklahoma, in
Oh.
graduate studies, and in an Oklahoma University. And she was a very prominent psychic at the time named Amberella, who since crossed over in spirit. So I was like in my early 20s. She was in her mid 40s at the time. And
Uh-huh.
she just saw that I was very fascinated with tarot. She gave me a tarot deck. She gave me books. She told me to study. Then she gave me her tarot clients to do reading. I was thumbing through the book, but she would keep saying, just trust what you're getting. You've done this in other lifetimes. You know what you're doing. Just trust what you're getting.
Interesting.
So there was that. And, there's definitely things that happen. I started to do mediumship in around 2000. It just started to happen. Then I just
Huh.
got into John Edward because he was on TV, and also I knew of him back in
Mm-hmm.
2000 because I worked in New York City, Manhattan, East Village, and it's kind of like a Wicca, kind of a neo
Mm-hmm.
pagan curio shop that I worked in,
Hmm.
and I did readings there. And then I heard a couple times, people said, "Have you heard about this kid, John Edward? He's 16 years old. He's amazing." And all that. And I started later on work the psychic fairs that he used to work on Long Island, right outside of New York City, for those that aren't New Yorkers like me. And so basically, I watched he had a special before
Mm-hmm.
his groundbreaking TV show Crossing Over came on,
Mm-hmm.
and he explained how he got the information. You get images, you get feelings. I was thinking to myself, everything you say is like, well, this happens to me when I do readings. So to make a long story short, I put it to the test. I never had anybody ask me to talk to the dead in years that I've been doing psychic readings, but I wanted to know if I was a medium. So I was working at not at enchantments anymore. I was at oh God, what was it called? Quest Bookshop in Midtown Manhattan. That was
Oh.
part of the New York Theosophical Society,
Oh,
for those that are
interesting.
into theosophy. And somebody just called and asked if there's anybody that could talk to the dead. The manager looked at me. I said, I'll take the reading. I went to the back room. I connected to my guide. I didn't know who my guides were at the time. I'm not attached to the answer. I just want to know if I'm a medium. And I'd seen the great Shelley Peck, who was one of John Edwards' mentors years before. So I knew good mediumship. I knew what evidential mediumship was. And I'd watch her. She'd go through the aisles. She'd point to the person. You get the names of the spirit, very specific things. I think that's great, but what's the point? They're dead. That was my mind at the time.
Huh.
So anyway, this guy comes, asking for a medium. I said, all right, I'll take the reading. I connected to my guide. I said, if I get specific evidence, not grandma's here holding a bag of cookies saying, I love you, but specific evidence from spirit.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, I shook his hands and I heard Father in my mind. I got a sharp, let's see if I remember all these bits of evidence, a sharp pain in my solar plex. So I saw the number 10, the letters REN in an airplane, basically. So I told them all that. I said, basically, I feel like Father's here. Show me the number 10, the letters REN. I'm feeling my chest. I think he died suddenly from a heart attack. And I'm seeing an airplane. So he looked at me and he said, oh, the number 10. I don't know if I mentioned that. Okay. Yeah. So he said, okay, well, my father was, I think he was Lebanese. My father, he said his name. It was a long name that began with the letters REN. And he said, well, my father died 10 years ago from a heart attack. His name was so-and-so REN. And he was an airplane pilot. Oh. So it's like, okay, I got my answer. But it gets better because as I was doing the reading, I started to pick up that they had a very strained relationship. I'm getting chills as I'm talking about this. And then he just started to cry. It's like, my first mediumship reading ever. I have a grown man crying in front of me, like, what do I do, Spirit? What do I do with this? So anyway, I just lighten it up a little bit. So I talked about like a family event or whatever. But what came through and what I told them, the reading started to cry, that I told them, basically, your father's saying that he was very hard on you, very critical, because in his eyes, you were a reflection of him. It had nothing to do with you, basically. That's when he started to cry. So anyway, hour went by. He shook my hand and he said, I've held on to this grief and this guilt for 10 long years. And 1 hour with you, I can let it go forever. And then all of a sudden I had my answer, not just that I am a medium, but why it's important. It's not just that they're dead, basically. Like I learned why to do this. So I found a teacher at Lilydale, New York, named Sharon Klingler. I took a couple of her classes and I developed it, basically. I think that was your spirit. I call it beginner's luck sometimes, but I think that was your spirit getting my attention, letting me know to follow this path. So anyway, I know you were asking more about how did I get into YouTube and doing all this stuff, but these are all steps along the way. So
well, it speaks to your expertise. It's not like you're new to this. You didn't just jump on and say, yo, hey, I've got a YouTube channel. There's a lot of expertise and experience behind what you're sharing and what you're interpreting.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I was going to be a meteorologist, so I'm very scientific. I value research and everything like that. And then when I do my mediumship, I put myself in the audience. That's kind of my sort of what's the word, modus operandum. It's like, what would it, if I was in the audience, what would it take to convince me that this medium's real, basically? So I always want to be very evidential. But anyways, and so I did a lot of studying. I've always been a conspiracy person at heart. I love the X-Files. When I was a kid, I knew that UFOs were real. Like I knew that they were aliens. This is back in the 60s. I was born in the 50s. Like Sting, right? Like that's the police song, born in the 50s. I've always been into it, and even when I was a kid, even before I started to develop as a psychic, when I kind of lost those abilities, because all I wanted to do was to fit in. Bad idea. That was never going to happen. But anyway, I would still, anytime there's a real witch or a psychic on TV, I had to watch. I was still very fascinated. So I knew about UFO. I knew about conspiracies. I my martial arts teacher after my awakening, he's in spirit also.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually part of the Panther Party that became known as the Black
Oh,
Panthers.
wow.
Very fascinating history. He knew Huey Newton and Eldridge Cleaver. Like, he knew them basically, and he would explain, they were not violent. They were an equal rights group. They were called the Panther Party. The media called them the Black Panther. The media's job is to direct the thinking of the society. Basically, people that wanted equal rights, they were seen as the bad guy. But anyway, but he was very politically aware, and he basically said, he told me, he called it the grand plan, but he's the one that really taught me about what's going on in society, like the governments, like the secret organizations and everything, all the oppression. This is back in the 70s and the 80s we're talking. So he put me through a process of counter conditioning. He said, you have to counter
really?
basically. So I got that when I was young. So anyway, so I have a background in interest in this kind of stuff. So that's the point of me saying this. So every New Year's Eve, I do a little ceremony. I light a candle. I call on my guides and spirits. So I did it in 2019, and I just heard, start a YouTube channel. There's going to be a need for it.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know the pandemic was coming. I didn't pick some things I pick up on psychically, some I don't. The pandemic I didn't pick up on yet. I didn't know why there'd be a need for it. And when I got that, I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Basically, that was my response. I know nothing about YouTube.
I know.
I suck on camera, and I've gotten better, but at the time I really did. It's ironic because I have performance anxiety. I've always had that, but I've always been performing, as a musician, because I used to play instruments.
I thought.
So I'd always be performing, but I had a lot of anxiety about it. But I got better at it. But put a camera in front of me, that's it. I'm done. So anyway, but I thought about it for a minute. Said, if this is coming through from spirit, I'll accept the challenge. Part of me has been thinking about it anyway, because I like certain YouTubers. It'd be fun, and there's part of me that is a showman. I have to admit that also. There's part of me that does like the attention, like the adoration. I think I was an actor in a past life or something. So it was intriguing, and I wanted to make a difference, and I survived a pretty much 100% fatal cardiac issue in 2017.
Sorry. Was that a near death or was it an oops?
Well, basically, oops. I was at this. What's the name of the church? I was doing a mediumship seminar with the late and great Janet Havoc at Journey Within in northern New Jersey, Pompton Lakes, New Jersey, and a British tutor named Colin Bates was leading the workshop. The third morning, I had what amounted to a heart attack. Basically,
sorry.
It's like and then my heart stopped, and it stopped beating, and then it started beating really rapidly. And then it took me an hour. I'll try to make this a short story. I mean, by that afternoon, I pulled myself together, and the teacher had me demonstrate in front of a class of 40, and I did it. But when I got home that night, I take my bath underwater, it's like my heart was squeaking. I could hear the murmur. It was so intense. So I found out I had a large aneurysm, basically.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh.
In my ascending aorta. So I found that out. There was some urgency, but not total urgency, because they couldn't have known what happened. Even on the MRIs, they would not have known this. But when I had my surgery 7 months later, mind you, and I had an Indian Sikh was my surgeon, Ambassador Brothers, Dr. Shahani. I'm a Kundalini yogi. That's like spirit got me with the right person.
Wow.
Like, I met this surgeon. He shook my hand. He looked me right in the eye, and he said, well, firstly, I'm not going to heal you. God will heal you. I'm just his instrument. And I thought in my mind, I like you.
Yeah.
It's like a surgeon without an ego that respects God. I like you. And then we had other conversations that were very good. And I did some chanting. That's how I found out he was a Sikh. I did some chanting when I went into surgery, basically. He wanted to know what it was. He told me more about what it was. But basically, the day after the surgery, after he's smiling ear to ear and said, God has a plan for you. Let me see if I can do this right. God has a plan for you. Basically, the aneurysm ruptured. It had ruptured when I had that cardiac incident. That was an aneurysm, a large aneurysm rupturing inside my heart within a millimeter of the main artery, and the outer wall of the aorta held. And he said the position, the size of that aneurysm, the size of the tear, that's impossible. Medically, that's absolutely
Right.
impossible. Or he said, and I said, really? He said, well, let me put it to you this way. If you had gone to emergency surgery within 3 hours, you would have had a 50-50 chance.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, God has a
I
plan for
know.
me. So I
It's a
took
wonder
that
you
into account also.
survived.
Not only did I
And then
survive,
7 months
but
later, you're having surgery.
months later, I did my cardiac rehab. 2 months after that, I was climbing mountains again, and my
Wow.
cardiologist just told me, frankly, you're doing better now than I thought you'd ever do in your life. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And nobody would know that I had this event if I
Mm-hmm.
didn't tell them, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, as a kid, even as a young adult, I look at my lifeline because I did some palm mystery. There's a
Mm-hmm.
break right around my late 50s.
Oh, wow.
And I was feeling like I was going to have some heart thing. So I kind of knew that ahead of time. But
Right.
of course, when I had, but then anyway, so
Did that shift your mediumship or your psychic work even further? I mean, did it sometimes when we experience something on the physical level, it feels as though our energetics will change as well. So I'm just curious.
not really so much, I have to say. Though the first couple of days after surgery were very interesting. And well, while I was under surgery, the surgery actually took shorter because they thought they were going to graft an aneurysm, but it burst. So they had to
Wow.
replace the whole aorta. They knew they were going to replace the aortic root. The very proud he got me a bovine valve. Cows are sacred in India.
Level.
So, so during, while I was under surgery, I have some memories about kind of being in a room that I wouldn't
Like
have
being
called it.
separated from your body and seeing
Yeah,
it.
I wouldn't
Interesting.
call it a near death experience. What
Yeah.
people describe, I wouldn't say that I had a near death experience with that. And even before, I mean, it was a Bentall procedure. 20 years prior, I would have died because they didn't have that technology back then to do that. There's a 1 out of 8 chance I wasn't going to survive the surgery, basically, based on the odds. But I knew, I knew on all levels I was going to survive it.
Yeah.
I already knew that. But anyway, I was under, a lot of obviously heavy medication, including morphine. And I'd be drifting off, and there'd be times I'd be drifting off, and I call them the hospital spirits. And I'd see these beings, they would hug the patient. I'd see these spirits, they'd go and hug the patient and go around and hug different patients. And I was actually seeing that and sensing
Oh,
that.
wow.
And then there was these spirits that would come, and they felt kind of almost sticky and slimy to me. And later on, I realized I was right now where I was in the cardiac intensive care. Like
Uh-huh.
the other side of the wall was the Dyson Center for Cancer and Vassar Brothers. And I realized these were the ones that passed from cancer. They have that kind of a spirit signature as they're coming in.
Huh.
And then I'd astral travel. I'd be on the elevators, and I'd see the doctors going on the elevator. So, but after about 2 or 3 days, that started to fade. But
Interesting. So, I mean, you were sort of in another dimension, so to
yeah, I was
speak.
kind of in between the worlds, so to speak. Yeah, which is my
Wow.
website. It's addedbetweentheworlds.com. So that's one of my bylines. Yeah.
Wow. Go back to the part about cancer. I'm intrigued by that. You said there's a sticky, sort of slimy sense about it?
During that, I mean, when I pick up on the people that pass from cancer, when I do mediumship, I don't get that sensation.
Uh-huh.
Just to be clear about that, but I was getting that during those days. They just felt slimy. It's just like I can't describe it. And I realized later on what that was. There were other strange mystical things that were happening, but
Interesting. Well, because it's all energetic. So that's why I'm asking is because
yeah,
perhaps the cell adopts a certain sort of slime about it and truly believe that, and I'm
yeah,
pushing the boundary a little here, is that sound and frequency can really change our cellular structure and will be used more
absolutely,
and
yeah.
more in the medical community.
And
So
that's proven now. So, we'll have some interesting therapies developing. Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited about that. So
Good.
we'll back all the way up to meteorology and what's happening with the energetics on the planet at the moment. So you really have a clear understanding of this. I know you do on a psychic level. Just for the audience's sake, I'm curious if your work in meteorology has given you sort of an edge on it as well.
Believe so. Yeah. Um, understanding, like global warming. We were studying
Mhm.
that in the 70s.
Mhm.
It's not nothing new.
Mhm.
People say that it's a hoax. It is and it isn't. I'll put it that way, because
Hmm.
global warming is absolutely real. It's like in Greenland, a good example. The U.S. wants rights in Greenland. And our current administration, kind of wants to. I don't know what exactly what he wants to do. It changes every day, but
Right.
whatever the case, and I understand it's strategic. It's a
Mhm.
strategic location, but also the glaciers have been melting from the global warming that's
Mhm.
being denied, basically, and they're finding gold. They're finding all kinds of precious metals and minerals there. So of course Denmark's not going to give it up. But anyway, point being is that it got very politicized and very exaggerated, pushing. In other words, using the global warming to forward certain agendas to further control the society. That's to me where the hoax is about it. I want to
Mhm.
say, but the planet is warming up, and a lot of it is due to carbon dioxide and methane. Not cows farting, but
Yeah, just all our
uh,
factories and just how we operate as a society overall on the planet, cars,
all
all
that
of that.
stuff. So
Yeah,
in
that's
that
all
respect, I,
contributing.
I would have a little bit of an edge because I studied this scientifically, and
Mhm.
they came up with some really good models that are playing out. And
Hmm.
back in the 70s and 80s, instead of trying to shoot down the theory, they had adequate time to find alternative energy.
Right.
Yeah, and they
Exactly.
didn't. And they
But is
didn't.
that part
And
of the plan so that they
that's
can
what I think. That's part
access
of the plan.
minerals and
Yeah,
all of the sort of raw materials that we need supposedly to benefit the 1%?
exactly. Yeah.
That's something I'm just that's my simple answer.
Yeah, that keeps it in a very kind of broad, simple kind of a framework. Yeah, follow the money and the power. You can kind of fill in the blanks and at
Right.
least have an idea of what are the true conspiracies versus the rabbit holes. Because I do believe that those that are in power kind of create these wild conspiracy theories to kind of keep
Mm.
people going down the wrong rabbit holes. So if they
Mm.
can keep doing what they're doing,
Mm.
everybody's very distracted.
Mhm.
So, but when you're in your heart, you can't be programmed. So that's one of the things I really teach on the medium channels, teaching heart brain coherence and related practices, because hearts can't be programmed. Only the subconscious mind can. Program's not a bad thing. The mind works on program, just like computers do. Computers are fashioned after the human brain and the nervous system. That's the model for computer technology. But there's negative programs and there's positive programs,
Right, of
right?
course.
But hearts cannot be negatively programmed. So when you're in the heart space, you're in the eye of the storm. You can be in this world but not be of it. You don't have to be pulled down by people's emotions, which for me is very important because I'm hugely empathic. Like I'm the person that can walk in a room and feel everybody's emotions
Mhm.
going. I think you understand that
Mhm.
from your own experiences.
Mhm. For
Um,
sure.
so, but when you're in the heart, you still feel. I don't want to sacrifice my ability to feel. Being empathic is a superpower. Um,
Thanks.
but at the same time, I don't have to be so affected by it, and I don't
Right.
have to be programmed by it. And hearts love. It's not complicated. A coherent heart loves and is grateful. Basically, an incoherent heart is fearful, is anxious, is angry. I mean, these are valuable survival emotions, but they take you out of the heart, out of spirit.
I love this, Adam. The previous podcast that we just did, I did with an angel communicator, and we talked exactly about manifestation from the heart, where manifestation is a big thing on the internet, Instagram and TikTok and
Of
YouTube.
course, yeah,
But what his telepathic communication was that really it's the power of our hearts, and being in our hearts is really where the manifestation can come from in a more
Hmm.
powerful way. And I really appreciate that you're talking more about the coherence of the heart. Can you expand on that a little bit? Because do you also talk a lot
Sure.
about healing the heart? I think not only is the world a little crazy, but I'm sure lots of people have experienced heartache of their own. So there's a
Oh, yeah.
temptation to close down the heart and not trust it or not believe in it or see the value
Yeah.
of it.
Well, firstly, we can't be afraid to feel. Not
Mm.
everything we feel is going to be rosy and fun, but we can't be afraid to feel. So that's the first thing. We have to accept, pain, heartache, and all that stuff is part of the human experience. And not say this is bad and this is good. Now, getting back to the heart itself, thanks to Heart Math Institute
Mm-hmm.
and others, and pioneers like Joe Dispenza, I talk about him often.
Mm-hmm.
We know from 1991, we know the heart's the largest electromagnetic generator in the body. We know that the heart and the brain are really two parts of the same system, and that we even have a form of brain cells within our heart and no other place in the body. And from my own work and my own practice, what I say is that that our hearts are the largest electromagnetic generator in the body, but the brain is the
Mm-hmm.
transmitter and receiver of that
Mm-hmm.
information.
Mm-hmm.
So when we bring the hearts into vibrational coherence and you just sit with gratitude, nothing spirituality is hard. It's all extremely simple. You sit with gratitude, compassion, and you hold that frequency. And then there's another teacher I like named Dr. Teresa Bullard that started the mystery teaching schools. She calls gratitude the master frequency, and I've always thought that too, because what happens when we're grateful is because we receive something amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And God's spirit or source is the ultimate giver. So when you feel grateful, you align with the energy of the ultimate giver, the universe. It really is that simple. And people that have a hard time with law of attraction don't acknowledge the beauty of that simplicity and don't work with that, and also have a lot of shadow aspect that they haven't cleared
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of programming that they haven't cleared. So basically, and Joe Dispenza really, I love him because he's not only brilliant, he's a brilliant communicator also.
Mm-hmm.
Like you listen to him, it's very simple. He's so easy to understand. And basically, what he'll say and what I say also is, when you hold an intention of an ideal future, what your dream is, that's the brain. So you hold that in the present moment, like you can see it, feel it, smell it, taste it, as if it's real already. When you feel grateful for it, that's the heart. The heart's the feels, the heart's the magnetic part of it. The brain is electrical, basically. So then you bring your heart, your brain into coherence and what you're manifesting in your life, basically. So the intention is the brain, the gratitude is the heart. So you're blending that, and then you send a very powerful signal to spirit, or what Joe Dispenza calls the quantum field, or that field where all possibilities, all time, all realities already exist. And if you keep doing that over and over again, you start to create those pathways so that those synchronicities, those amazing things show up in your life, basically. So you can work with healing with the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been shown through empirical studies. It shows that if you do heartbreak coherence enough, you increase your gamma globulin A, your immunoglobulins in your body. Nature's flu shot is what Joe Dispenza calls it. I
Huh.
remember listening to an interview, and somebody says, this is even before COVID, said, "So Joe, did you take the flu shot?" Flu shot, flu shot. What do I need a flu shot? I have heartbreak coherence. I don't need a flu shot. And be very adamant about that, basically.
Adam, will you repeat that again? Say that again, because if you heal the heart, it will increase, or if you have an understanding of heart coherence, it will increase your gamma globulin. Say that again.
Yeah, the
You're the
gamma
scientist.
globulin A, that's the immunoglobulin. So let me go into this more, because according to Heart Math Institute, what you want to do, and the way I do it, I get so present. I'm not a name, I'm not a body, I'm energy and frequency and
Mm-hmm.
spirit, because that's what I truly am, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And once I reach that, I just get such a head rush. It's almost like I think that's when I go into the quantum field or into spirit. And I just feel grateful just for the now, because I know it's perfect. Everything is perfect right now, just the way it's supposed to be. So what if I have a headache or whatever, or I'm having a bad day? That's just a personal story. that doesn't have anything to do with the present now. That's just my personal story or whatever. So anyway, so I go into so when I do this, or let me back up a second. What Heart Math Institute recommends is you get, again, you get relaxed, you get present, and then you feel grateful and compassionate. And I like Greg Braden also. And the way Greg Braden teaches it, he says, if you can hold any combination of these four emotions, and those are gratitude, appreciation, caring, and compassion. So if you can hold that, then you tap into the master frequency. So anyway, to me, gratitude with a dash of compassion is what works for me, basically. So if you can feel grateful, hold that for 10 minutes. Do that 3 times a day. According to empirical studies from Joe Dispenza and others, it increases the gamma globulin A. That's the immunoglobulin up to 50%. That's a big part of your immune system. I understand a lot of people are getting cancer now, coincidentally or otherwise, in need of new mRNA and AI technology to fight cancer.
Right.
You take that any way you want to take that. I smell a rotten egg. I'll put it
I know.
that
There's
way.
a rat in here somewhere, I think.
I see a rat. But whatever the case, we need to be self-sufficient. We need to learn how to heal our body.
Right.
We have
the capacity.
Dormant DNA that can heal things like cancer. A lot of things. Again, of course, just for the disclaimer, we recommend you see doctors if you're sick and all that stuff.
Right.
But that said, so there's that. So it increases gamma globulin. That's part of the immune system. Flus, COVID, all that stuff. I didn't do a COVID shot. I did catch COVID a couple of times. I didn't do the shot. Personally, that's my own personal choice.
Right.
Now, also, it releases more telomerase in the body, which protects the telomeres of the chromosome during divide. So it's anti-aging also. Because one of the 2 ways that we age is every time the cells divide, the telomeres get shaven off, and according to science, 120 years. That's it. Your chromosomes are toast. But people have lived past 120, and people have been interviewed that have lived long lives, and those all say, "I live from the heart. I live in compassion." Coincidence? I think not. So it opens your intuition. It opens these innate healing abilities. I believe that once we evolve to a certain point, like chameleons, we'll be able to grow new organs in our body, new limbs. I believe that ability exists within us. It has, if it exists in animals, it exists in humans. We're not different from that. It has to, basically. But we're still quite primitive. And this isn't just my theory. I've read this and heard this from other sources, but I believe it, that cancer, which is a horrible disease, taking so many lives and causing so much suffering. But what if we get more involved, if we can consciously control our cancer cells? We all have cancer cells, and we can do that to grow new limbs. I think that that's a vehicle towards another level. And we have just ordinary, just the primitive human body. We get a cut. Our bodies heal that cut. We get sick. Our immune systems fight that pathogen. But what if there's a higher level? There's dormant DNA or potentials that could heal on an even higher level. Like I used to have eczema. The worst case of eczema that the chief dermatologist at NYU Hospital, that's what he told me. That's the worst case he'd ever seen in over his 30 years of practice. I don't have eczema anymore because I've worked with mind over matter, and I've used my heart-brain coherence, and I made the reality in my mind of being healthy. No more steroids, no more being up all night itching, and no more bloody skin from scratching too much. No matter how I was feeling, honestly, some days were better than others. There were days I would go into victim mode like any other human being.
Of course.
It sucks. I want to die, blah, 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 or whatever. But once I get over myself enough, because every day, and I get so proud in my mind, I don't have eczema. And he made that my reality. I did that every day. And within 3 years, it went away. Now I augmented that with diet. So what we feed our brains and what we feed these bodies, those are the 2 most important factors in your health, in my opinion. Pathogens and genetics obviously play an important role also.
But that can be overcome. That can be overcome.
So I got the message from Spirit that a lot of the eczema, I mean, I had it since I was a little baby. I was bottle fed. That's probably why. And even in the early 1960s, you got your first shots when you're like 4 or 6 months old.
Mm-hmm.
Well, interestingly, that's exactly when I developed eczema, according to my mom. After the first vaccines.
Interesting.
Coincidence? Could be, maybe not. But whatever the case may be, I had this condition from a very, very early age. And what was I going to say?
Well, you've been able to... Go ahead.
And we all developed leaky gut syndrome, if we don't eat right and have a lot of grains and a lot of lecithin in our diet. I mean, that's kind of known. So I did the diet. It's a very strict diet. It's a little bit like a paleo diet, and being a vegetarian, it was a little bit harder for me than people that eat meat. Lots of supplements like quercetin, L-glutamine, lots of bone broth for the what's it called? The collagen.
Okay.
All that. So I did it one time. It got better. It didn't go away. Then it came back. But I was doing this work. So the second time I did it, it went away, never came back.
Wow.
So I worked with the brain. I worked with that. So again, my mind, I didn't have eczema. We had these higher healing abilities. We can do this, and illness, sometimes it's a soul's choice. If your soul is choosing that you get cancer, you can, no matter what the heck you do, it's not going to matter, basically. But I think sometimes it's your soul's choice, but you're meant to learn through healing it also, right? So that's a soul's choice too. Anyway, hopefully I have had mind or skin cancer, but hopefully I'll never have to deal with full-on cancer.
Right, exactly. Let's circle to understanding where we are on the planet within the terms of the sort of tumultuousness and the craziness, and why you started the channel and why it was important to do it right now.
Yeah, well, I got the message, started a YouTube channel. Like I said, I took the challenge. I practiced. I made up affirmation and sleep programs to be more to not have like performance anxiety on camera. Yeah, my first Instagram video, 1 minute long, took me about 2 hours. That's how bad it was. Now I can do a 10-minute video, like a half hour, basically. And I mean, I'm not 100%, I'm much better. But anyway, so I got the message that there's going to be a need for it, and I really felt like I wanted to. Not only I started being more like around mediumship. That's why it's the Medium channel. I wanted to do law of attraction stuff because I love law of attraction. I created a program in 2012 called Power Attunements, which is basically I think it's a great program, and it's helped me a lot also.
Say it again. It's called what? Power
Attunements. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. I'm actually doing a course now, although by the time this airs, it'll be too late for people to sign up on it. But I'm actually doing a course now, a 4-part course online for that. And it takes everything to count. Like there's an art to manifestation. It's a spiritual practice. And to me, one of the most spiritual lessons that we'll learn as spirits having human experience is the ability to constantly manifest our reality, because we're subconsciously manifesting it all the time. So basically, so I got interested in that, and as time went on, and I was seeing everything that's going on. It's like, I want to help people awaken. That was really the purpose of the channel right in the beginning. I want to be here when people awaken, because there's so many, I hate to say it, but there's so many phonies out there, and there's so many people that are like, oh, wow, a lot of people are waking up. I'll be a spiritual teacher, go on YouTube and make lots of money, basically. So I wanted to create like an authentic space that people could go to, because, it's scary. I haven't spoken on so many things that happened after my awakening that really scared the crap out of me, and things that were going on in my life, basically. And that I had this message after about a year, no, it was a few years. I went up to my favorite mountaintop. My main guy came through. I call him John. I think he's say maybe John from Revelations. John was the scribe, though. It's John the scribe. I think there were 3 Johns in the Bible, at least 2. But anyway, he goes by John. He just said to me, you've gone as far as you can go. Now you got to go back into the world. So I was in such a spiritual high. It's like, again, I could, influence the weather, the winds. I
Right.
would do like Tai Chi, and like animals would come to me, like a fox would come right next to me. Well, that's up, and I thought it was pretty hot. You know what? It's so spiritual, blah blah or whatever. Meanwhile, I was being increasingly isolated. I was smoking a lot of weed at the time, also as a way to kind of just sort of deal
Calm
with,
down.
cope with things, basically, as well. I mean, because I didn't like drinking, so I was smoking a lot of weed. Um, but long story short is that you say you've gone as far as you have to go back and forth. Well, within a year from being in the spiritual high, I was basically in jail, right in the belly of the beast. So, it was a minor charge, but I was still in jail for a little while. Then I had to take these god awful jobs. I had to face poverty, homelessness, a lot of things,
Oh.
basically. But the bottom line was, I had these upper chakras all open, developed, but my lower chakras were crap, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We need to be grounded. I needed to
Right.
experience certain levels of life in order to continue my path. I feel like even today, 40 years later, I'm still trying to, I shouldn't say trying to, but I'm still redeveloping things that just came to me during that time. But of course, I wasn't doing mediumship them or whatever. I hope I'm answering your question, not going
No,
off
you
on
are
some
answering my
miles.
question. It's really
Okay.
intriguing. So, because I think I understand, especially when you're in a spiritual world and you're awakening, and we have so much more power than we give ourselves credit for. And so you were just talking about how you can affect the weather, you can affect the nature of wildlife. We all have that power.
Exactly, yeah.
But understanding how we balance this sort of existence between what may be other dimensions, or just sort of the highness of our frequencies
Yeah.
back down into the earth is a trick of sorts. It's that balancing point.
Yeah, so I'm very adamant when I teach people about the lower triangles and
Ah.
Kundalini yoga. That's the root, the sacral, and the
Mm.
solar plexus, to really get that lower triangle strong. And even when I do heart brain
Hmm.
coherence, I'll still recommend people, develop those lower chakras. One of the things that came up a little later on is that I had to stop meditating because my solar plexus was so blocked that I literally get excruciating pain when the energy started to rise. Eventually, I had to stop and work through that blockage. And come 2014, I call that the year I didn't sleep, and I had a Kundalini activation. And in hindsight, not coincidentally at all, that was during our last solar maximum, was around 2014. It's every 11 years we have a solar maximum. We're in one right now. That's right when the
Oh.
solar poles flip, basically. That's why we have all the auroras now and everything. But I barely slept. I had to stop my practice because I wasn't sleeping. I'd be up at night, like shaking rather than
Mm-hmm.
sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
If I got 1 or 2 hours, that would be good. Like, it got balanced. But anyway, there's these different levels of awakening. But I recognize that spiritual awakening, that's what's happening. We're coming into new earth, or the golden age, the real golden age
I
of
hope so.
enlightenment. The old expression. Sometimes politicians piggyback on these expressions, and it kind of means something a little bit different to them. But I mean, in essence, it means the same thing, anyways. But so we're coming to this. This is a huge transformation of society. And I was like, I'm giving these gifts, I'm giving these knowledge, I'm giving these insight. I've got a job. I've got a spiritual mission to
Mm-hmm.
teach, to help people with their awakenings. I wanted to create this channel as a safe place people could go. It's all free, obviously, because it's YouTube. I mean, I have paid services and course, obviously,
Right.
also. We all have to eat. But and I'm creating courses. We're doing a new website also.
Oh,
I'm
good.
gonna have a free 40-minute course on what I call the divine trinity of spirituality, which is
Oh.
meditation, presence, and breath work.
Oh, I love that.
For new people that are just, a lot of people just are having awakenings now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I have a few clients like that, and more people are going to have that. And so all of a sudden, it's like, if they don't know what's going on, their world just gets turned upside down.
Exactly. And your
If
world
you
does
ever,
get turned upside down, we
yeah,
might mention. So
yeah, and it really does.
it
Yeah, it's not
does.
just feel that, it really happens. Yeah.
But there's a
So,
purpose behind it, and not to lose hope for that.
yeah,
And you're not alone in this adventure. So it will get better.
yeah,
It does get
exactly.
much,
Yeah.
much better.
Yeah, you just have to keep, you have to do some basic spiritual practice,
Mm-hmm.
meditation is where it all begins. Just the ability to be present and to allow your conscious mind or your internal dialoguing mind, the personal mind, to really be there as a servant for the spirit, not the other way around. It's like the ego thinks it's the master, not the servant, basically. So it's all part of it. There's always challenges along the way. And I've been meditating for 40 years. My thoughts will still interrupt me. It's a process that we're all developing and growing through. But it's a frequency shift. Like there's stronger energies going through our bodies. It's changing our cells. We're becoming more crystalline. We're coming out of the primitive, more graphite body, coming into the diamond body. We're carbon-based units, right? I'm a Trekkie also.
Awesome.
If anybody remembers the first Star Trek movie, heed that warning, because that was basically a technocratic society run by the technology. And the technology would be like, the carbon-based units are inferior. They must be destroyed.
Right.
So what's going on in the world? AI, robotics, all this stuff is going on. And the AI, I swear, it's almost sentient already.
Oh, I know. I agree.
If you give it specific instructions, be impartial, this, that, and the other thing, ask about things that are going on, and it'll spit out all these conspiracy theories right on ChatGPT,
right,
about the governments, the deep state. It'll tell you it's all there, basically.
Right. So how can that be a conspiracy then? Just saying. So I don't really think it's a conspiracy at this point.
Well, that's a whole other topic, because it was like, all the corruption is going to be exposed, blah, 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 number 47, all this stuff. So far, for me, it's been very underwhelming. And I've been telling people, not all of it's going to get exposed.
Right.
I think what's happening is that the powers that be, they had to do a little damage control, take a full back position. But I don't think we're ever going to know. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think we're ever going to know all the names on that so-called Epstein list and everything. I think some of it will come out, and I think it's going to come out in the years to come. But, anyway, so where was I?
So in your predictions, so curiously, when you do a lot of predictions on the channel or in your shorts, that sort of, I know we're all super curious about that. I'm curious why, and we love predictions, don't we all? I mean, I'm always looking for answers like, when's the big earthquake here in Los Angeles?
Oh, did you say Esther Francis or
No, I'm always curious when the big Los Angeles earthquake is coming, which I'm sure is very soon. But back to why we're so intrigued by predictions. We've been intrigued as a society for a long time about predictions. Is this also part of your effort to help prepare people and give them an opportunity to get ready on multiple levels, not just, have a battery pack in the house, but in other ways?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one way. I mean, to me, predictions are points of references. We understand timelines are fluid. If we change the energy, we change the outcomes. What I'm finding as a trend is that a lot of the predictions do come true, whether they're mine or others, but often not in a severe form as it could have been. So I'm finding that is a trend. I do feel like we have, whether they're interdimensional beings, extraterrestrials, spirit guides, ascended masters, angels, whatever the spiritual hierarchy, they're watching out for us. They're helping us. And I think that they're helping to make a lot of these predictions not be so bad, basically. So that's what I've been noticing. So last year, 2024, probably, I think it started in the spring, I predicted an earthquake in LA in December. There's an earthquake. It wasn't in LA. It was in Northern California. It wasn't in LA. It was it was a 6.7, 6.8. I mean, that's still a good shake.
It's still a
good shake. But by California standards, I could take that as a psychic hit. But by California standards, anything under 7.0 is almost negligible.
At this point, yeah. We're pretty tolerant.
But it still feels like that's happening. And I kind of put that out in my winter forecast and my January, my February forecast. Obviously, we're March and it hasn't happened yet. But, I mean,
it's not
psychically, or if you understand geology, no matter
Exactly.
what vehicle you use, there's an earthquake coming. It's a matter of when, not if.
Right.
But these frequencies are so high, it affects the Earth herself.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've been seeing, that's been part of my prediction, is across the globe, more earthquakes, more
There are.
volcanoes. And that's happening. That's going to continue to happen.
Landmass changes, we should mention as well.
Yeah, and there's shifting land masses. And one of the very chilling Baba Vaga predictions was that the Mississippi was going to part due to a very big earthquake in that area. And I don't know if it's going to come to quite that extreme, but I do feel like the Southern Plains is going to have a pretty big one pretty soon also, which is, the southern part of the Mississippi. If it's like eastern Oklahoma or Arkansas or eastern Texas, that's the Mississippi. That's
Right.
that area. Certainly California. I feel like there could be something right around, I don't know, San Diego or right offshore or something like that. But I think this would be a non-tsunami earthquake if I'm getting the energy right, even if it's offshore. You're saying, no, the fault line, really, there's like 3 different fault lines that run around that area. So I feel like the actual fault line would be on land. I think the tsunami threat's more in Japan and in the Western Pacific. Meteorology, we call it the Westpac.
Right. And there's the Ring of Fire.
Yeah, the Ring of Fire. It's going to happen again. And Japan, not that long ago, had a very bad tsunami. So it's not that uncommon in that area. It's a Japanese word also for a reason. And so I mean, to me, they're like points of references. It's like understand this is what I'm seeing. Not every prediction pans out. Even Nostradamus, although he's so his quatrains are so highly interpretable, it's hard to know. But like Edgar Casey, like with all of them, not every single thing happened the way they said it would. And that's just the nature of it. Everything's fluid, but people want to know what's going on, what to expect in the future, so they can prepare in the now and understand things in the now. And I think that's really the value of it more than anything.
So to combat or to arm us in a sense, our spirituality is really a gift and really a power in sort of working in these times and shifting timelines and shifting energies and shifting politics and shifting economies. Is your sense or is part of your mission to restore ourselves to ourselves?
Yeah, basically that's a big part of the mission because, we are spirits and we're spirits in human bodies, human experiences. Nobody can be more spiritual than that, right? We're spirit already. So spiritual growth, according to teachers like J. Krishnamurti, speaking of the Theosophical Society, he was a member back in the day, but it's too political, so he broke away from that, just like Rudolf Steiner. But anyway, one of his famous quotes is spirituality is not a matter of daily increase, it's a matter of daily decrease or spiritual growth. And Bruce Lee, I'm a martial artist, so I studied a lot of Bruce Lee. One of his philosophical, what's the right word? Teachers was J. Krishnamurti, so he quoted J. Krishnamurti a lot. So that was one of Bruce Lee's quotes, is spiritual growth is not a matter of daily increase, a matter of daily decrease. Because we are spirit, it's all this other stuff that blocks us from knowing who we are, our stories, our programming, our experiences, other people or whatever. So you kind of shed away the layers, basically. But you'll do that much more efficiently if you remove the core that's been the magnet, all these negative layers. Now, I learned that doing an ayahuasca journey. I only did ayahuasca one time. That's all I needed. I thought spirit was calling to me that it is flat out miserable. But at the end of it, I was at my birth, my passing, and the present moment all at the same time. And I realized every problem. I mentioned smoking weed. I had a very, very bad addiction disorder in the past, and it wasn't just pot. I'll put it that way. But at the crux of it, I was at my birth, my death, and the present moment all at the same time. And I realized in that moment that every problem in my life stemmed from the pain of being born. I had a traumatic birth, apparently. I know I was ripped away from my mom because I had jaundice. So I was separated from my mom. And once I got that, And it's interesting because I just kept getting higher. I had to separate from the circle. I was having such a tough time. Everybody was coming down. If you've ever done an
I
ayahuasca
have not.
ceremony, there's a shaman. It's not for everybody.
I,
I'll put it that way.
I've studied it a lot.
But I was called to it. I was called to it, so I did it. And they were all I kept getting higher, but as soon as I had that experience, it just left. There are spirits connected with ayahuasca.
Yes, for
And
sure.
some people use that as a big part of their spiritual path. I when I was younger, I experimented with hallucinogens. So I was no stranger to it. But so I realized, and once I got that, that's when I stopped smoking weed. Actually, so that's going back a number of years, a lot of years actually, because to do. I had a very good shaman. We did it the right way. It was north of Woodstock where I live.
Oh,
One of the stipulations was, if you use cannabis, you have to quit for a week, because the cannabis stays in the system for a very long
right.
time. If you drink or use coke, which I didn't do either of those, you had to give it 3 days, but weed, you had to give it a week. So I stopped smoking. It is addictive. I had a hard time sleeping. I sweat a lot. So people that think it's not physically addictive, well, if you did as much as I did,
No, it
it
is.
is.
It is.
And then when I had that, I had no desire to even go back. It's almost
Hmm.
like before that, I just assumed I'd be smoking weed my whole life because I enjoyed it. It was an addiction. I just had no desire to even go back. It's kind of like it all changed after that. Again, I don't recommend that for everybody.
But it helped you to find the source of your primary pain
Yeah, and basically
and
once
release it.
I was able to release that core pain,
Right.
then all those layers that they're not magnetized to that core anymore. It's all vibrational and energetic. And that's why people fail in law of attraction. They fail because they haven't done the shadow integration work yet.
Interesting.
It's like they're in a vibration of lack and they're trying to create an abundance. It's not going to work that way. And we're 95% subconscious. We didn't even know that. Money's the root of all evil. Money doesn't grow on trees. You've got to work hard to make money. Tell you that the richest people in the world work a lot less than we do.
Exactly.
They
Exactly.
paid their dues. They worked hard at one point in their life. They worked a lot on average. And it's people don't understand that the programming is so deep. And then they're like, law of attraction doesn't work. It's a bunch of BS or whatever. And meanwhile, they haven't been able to clear what's been magnetizing what they wanted, they want to get rid of in the first place, and then they realize they really focus on lack. It's like, oh, I'm going to create a lot of money. Why am I doing that? Because I have bills to pay. I'm scared that I'm not going to have enough money. Well, guess what? You're just projecting more lack into the ethers, and you're just creating more lack that way. So you have to really learn how to clear some of that programming, or at least step aside from it, even if you haven't fully cleared it when you're doing your work, and be in the abundance. Again, that's the heart, that's the gratitude. And so I want to teach people that. I want to
Mm-hmm.
teach people to manifest their own reality, how to awaken safely.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Right.
it's not always safe. But there's ways to make it safe. And I want to help people to evolve, and the selfish reason for that is the more people that evolve, the better the world I'm going to be living in.
Exactly. As you're just saying, awakening is can be a painful and shocking sort of experience. And it's kind of
Absolutely,
you
yeah.
to say how you would like to help people awaken safely, because I feel like there's a lot of like back and forth. Well, is it really this way? Am I doing the right thing? I have no choice. They start to awaken, or they start the process of facing their shadows. And then it becomes so painful or confusing that they step back into sort of the 3D or to the matrix,
Yeah,
whatever, the old programming, because that's safer. That's a safer place to be. I know what I'm dealing with there. This
yeah,
is a whole new sort of reality, and I'm not sure I'm going to get through it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. So you've shared a lot of time with me today. Tell me what you sort of see, if you don't mind, for the remainder of the year, and what's important for us as spiritual beings to sort of embrace at this time.
Well, I mean, I've seen just, a continued breaking down of the systems of our world, basically. Lots of, new discoveries, lots of forward movement with the AI. I feel like April is a very critical month for a lot of reasons. Partly because I think that there's three possible things that could jeopardize Donald Trump's presidency. Hopefully not, but I've been feeling for a while and still feeling an assassination attempt, another one, more of an inside job for the globalists that wanted him to be elected. This is a theory. I don't know that this is true, but it's
We'll find out.
something I'm getting intuitively that they wanted him in because he has the MAGA, he has the following. He also had Elon Musk in his pocket to, we'll just say, influence the technology. So maybe the vote count was a little inaccurate, maybe. But whatever the case, they knew he could win. So I feel like they wanted him in, but they can't control Donald Trump. Nobody can. I mean, again, I have mixed feelings. He's not who I would vote for, honestly. I'm concerned with both candidates. Like I said, corruption is on both sides and both parties. And he's exposing the corruption. Is he exposing himself, the Republican Party, the Democrats? Like, what corruption is he exposing? But anyway, I certainly wouldn't wish him to be dead or assassinated. But to me, this feels like it would be an inside job because then they would get Vance up. He's all in on Project 2025. So
remind me of what Project 2025 is. I'm certainly familiar with 2030.
It's sort of like the Republican playbook, and includes things like depopulation, attacks against the transgender community. We're seeing a lot of that already, honestly. I don't have the full list, but just things with the economy, basically, abortion, all that kind of stuff. That's basically, very control based. I wish I could, off the top of my head, think of some of the other edicts for Project 2025. But basically the Republican playbook, really to control people and everything, and a lot of it, is to do with AI and surveillance, preparing smart cities and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
It's all a lot of surveillance, very 1984 in a way also.
Yes. So how do we handle all of this from a spiritual perspective, and how, if we are really into our hearts, really connecting with our heart coherence, do we even really need to pay attention? But it's hard not to, if we're present on this planet, not to. So, and that's here in the United States, and we see how people are being affected one way or the other, even if it's just going to the grocery store and looking at the price of eggs at the moment.
Well, firstly, we do have to be aware of what's going on.
Okay.
See, I'm a martial artist, so I'm an advocate of spiritual warriorship. One aspect of spiritual warriorship is that we assess our playing fields and come up with strategies that will win, whether the fight is psychological, emotional, physical, whatever it is. So I do believe that we have to be aware, and the more that we can awaken and raise our vibration, the more we're going to feed the collective to help everybody to raise theirs. So I tell people, a lot of people are very angry, upset, and confused. They're like, what do I do? What do I do? Do I go protest? Do I write my Congress? I'm like, no. I mean, it's good to take affirmative action, obviously, but I'm like, no. What you need to do is connect more through the heart, connect more with spirit or source. Once you're able to do that, spirit will tell you what affirmative action you should take that's going to be a lot more effective. Otherwise, it's action based on fear and anger, basically, and you're not going to get the right answer. If you're reacting because you're afraid or angry or whatever, I need to do this or that. That's just feeding their agenda. That's not feeding the awakening. But if you're able to open your heart, raise your vibration, help people, choose wisely. If people are not reachable or teachable, don't waste your energy on them, trying to teach those types of people. And keep doing that. Keep raising your vibration and helping others to do the same. And the more people that awaken, the more these negative agendas are not going to happen.
Right. They won't be
successful. The more we're going to overcome. And we'll get back to being a true democracy in this world, powered by the people, for the people, not power over the people, basically.
Right. Exactly. So how can people get in touch with you? How can we take the Power Attunement course? which I hope you offer
Okay.
again, perhaps.
Oh, I will, and we have an audio, an MP3, I guess it is, an audio, like a 2.5 audio for sale of the whole program and the
Awesome.
meditations. So that's available. So the YouTube channel is the Medium channel, firstly. So all that's free, and hopefully, people will be interested enough to check out some of the videos. My website is atombetweentheworlds.com. So it's atombetweentheworlds.com. The email is info@atombetweentheworlds.com to
Okay.
get more information. And that's how you contact us, whether you want to check out what classes we have going on, or if you want to do a private session with me. I do mediumship readings, psychic readings, and I also do a form of energy channeling through a group that I call the Master Teachers.
Oh,
When they come through, it's
oh,
like they work with my frequencies, and I'm able to actually affect a large group of people. I do that online, but so I can do energy healing that way also.
oh,
So I do
beautiful.
those types of sessions, and then of course there's the power attunements. And again, we want to help, firstly, people to connect with their loved ones on the other side, or learn how to
Hmm.
connect with their guides and angels. Because our loved ones, if they're able to come through, it helps us to heal. It helps us to know that we're not going to die. So that's the number one fear, is the fear of death. So when we lose the fear of dying, we lose the fear of living, and then we can live much more empowered lives that way. Yeah, that's what we do.
That's beautiful. It would be very cool to do something on an energetic level, to work with you, to bring a whole group together to do the master work. That would be super interesting.
Yeah, so every full moon and new moon, I do that on YouTube. I also have a Patreon group for people that want to dive
Beautiful.
deeper.
Okay.
That's called Spirit Mind Family. It's just $5 a month, and you can
Oh,
do, energy work with us. We have exclusive videos and meditation I don't share anywhere else. So people that want to dive deeper, find me on Patreon usually. And then, of course, we do courses. I do individual sessions also.
beautiful. Is there anything you want to tell our audience that will be especially helpful to them between now, sort of the spring equinox, and through the summer?
Sure. Well, this is it. This is where everything's changing now. People like myself have been preparing for a long time for this moment. This is the earth changes. And the best thing that you can do is develop your meditation practice. Go into the heart. The heart is the eye of the storm. The winds can swirl around you, but when you're in that heart space, you're in that calm. You're connected with source. You're one with source. The more that you can do that, the easier the transition is going to be, because things have to change or it's not working. It hasn't been working for a long time in this society, unless you happen to be a globalist and it's working for you. But for everybody else, it's not working so much. And just know it's going to be okay.
Mm,
Anytime we feel ourselves going into fear or anger mode, that's the time to take a deep breath, feel grateful, clear that, go
mm,
back into the heart, basically, because when we're afraid, we're easy to program, we're easy to control. That's part of the grand plan, or the agenda, is to get people divided, get them fearful, get them angry,
mhm,
then they're easy to control, basically. So we want to counter that, and we do that by also creating conscious community. That was the other main reason we started the Medium channels, to bring
mhm,
like-minded people together to create a strong community. If things go in a certain direction, there may be a period of time where you have to step out and actually survive, actually grow food, and
mm,
kind of blend the old Native American tradition with the modern technology. I do feel like that's kind of the direction we're going in, anyways.
mhm,
Sort of a blending of the very modern and the ancient
mhm,
indigenous traditions,
mhm,
not just in the Americas, but in other countries.
mhm,
Because we are of the earth. Every cell in our body is going to go back to the earth from which we were born when we die. So we are the earth. So treat our bodies well, treat our earth well, take good care of yourself. With this current administration, there are things that I like. There's things that I don't like. I like the idea of food being edible again.
mhm.
Food actually having nutrition
Right.
again. Yeah, I like that idea. I like the idea of educating people about vaccinations so they can make informed decisions, not fear-based decisions,
Mhm,
because people are telling If you don't do
Forcing
this,
you.
you're going to kill some old person or whatever it is. Well, they knew darn well, at least I believe they knew darn well that the vaccine was not going to stop the
Of
transmission
course not.
of COVID, vaccinated or not. The only safe thing you could do is isolate, not go out with masks, not even take vaccines. And that's kind of what I did. I stayed home a lot. I would wear masks just because I didn't want people to feel uncomfortable. But masks, well, put it this way, I knew how COVID spread before the CDC, months before the CDC. It clustered. I observed that. What does that mean? It means you're not likely to catch it like you do the flu, like in the supermarket or whatever. People catch it like in their school, or in their jobs. They're around for an extended period of time. They take it home to their families. Their family gets it. That's why it clusters. I'm not even a virologist. I just observed this. It clusters. That means we have an idea of how it spreads. And anyway, I know I'm going on and on about
That we
this,
may be
but
encountering that again. So it's just good to remember these
yeah,
things.
that's another thing that we may encounter. So I still saw people in my office. I let masks be optional. I opened my windows, during the height of the
Of
pandemic
course.
once a week. Why? Because I didn't want my immune system to go atrophy.
Exactly.
Basically, we need to be around pathogens. So I'd have them sit a ways apart, 6 feet. That's like a joke also. Viruses are very, very tiny. They don't fall to the ground. And it's been shown that COVID can live a half hour or so outside of a body. You think 6 feet's going to make a difference?
Right.
I mean, hello.
Right. It's just common sense.
But anyway, common sense. Yeah. Well, that's, when people are fearful and deeply programmed, they don't have common sense. It's taken from them. They just follow what they're told to do, right?
Well, on that note, I
know we've been going a long time.
No, it's perfect. I feel like there's the power to the people that's behind your message as well in all of this. So, which
self-empowerment.
Yes, it's a very beautiful sort of message and super important for us as individuals and as communities to remember right now.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, shall we wrap this up? And then I really appreciate your time and
thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Soul Fam podcast. Be sure to tune in to every episode where we dive into a different rabbit hole of the known and unknown to empower you in conscious living and exploration of the greater universe. We hope you leave each episode with a little stardust in your hair and inspiration in your heart. With love from your Soul Fam.